Okay, I was sitting down here, about to get ready to get to a different scene that was a request from someone involving some spring colors and a bridge and whatnot, but I had a comment on another video if I could do an underwater scene, and I've been telling people that some people have asked for that before, and I've done those types of things before, but not too much. But I just felt like I wanted to do this, so if the individual that asked for that bridge one can wait for another scene, I will get to that gladly. But this one, I don't know, I just felt like getting to this kind of underwater scene while I had, well, the Moonlight Duo's hybrid inks were kind of on my mind from the previous stamp impressionism video I just did. I just had such a great time with those inks, as I always do with these inks, okay? But I wanted to try something with these, and I didn't think I'd have enough stamps. I mean, I certainly knew that I could do some sort of underwater type of derivative type of scene, but the more I looked through my images, I thought, I really do have some images that would work just fine. Some things that could be kind of a coral reef. This could be a piece of coral right here. We have things like, I mean, this could be like some kind of sea fan. This could be kelp, other types of little corally types of things with these branches there. I mean, this one really looks like that. Boy, I forgot all the names of a lot of those corals. I was familiar with those at one time. I used to have a saltwater aquarium that I liked a lot, and would always be at the store. During that hobby. But this right here could be some sort of coral type of thing. It just depends on what type of colors you use with these things and what type of setting they're used in. But, that's what you want out of stamps, and that's what I try to provide in terms of how I approach stamp designing. I want things to be as universal as possible. Usually when I'm doing land-based elements, I'm not thinking, okay, we can use this under the water as well, but hopefully, if things are done well and executed well, they could be as specific as possible, okay, in terms of representing what it is it represents, but it can also be used for other things that might not have been considered upon its whatever creation. Okay. All right. So my idea here is, I'm not a diver by any means, but I am certified. But I love lighting, and I don't know if it's called crepuscular rays when it enters the water. I guess it is. But I love the light beams and how it reflects off all the, the sediment in the water, the water itself. I don't know what it's bouncing off, molecules or whatever, but I just love that kind of that atmosphere and in this total immersion, in a foreign substance. And of course, there's always that aspect of us breathing and kind of moving up and down with every breath. It's it's a situation where you're never so aware of your breath. How people kind of when they meditate, they're concentrating on their breathing and whatnot. Well, in diving, I wouldn't say it's meditation. I guess it could be, depending on how you kind of approach it. A lot of times you're just kind of visual and looking around and searching, and if you're a fisher, someone going fishing or something like that, then that it's functional as well. You're not just, you're hunting, for something. But I do love that aspect of kind of just the state of being down there. And I guess I not someone that did it so much, hardly ever. So for me, I was, very aware of my breathing and everything like that, and just fascinated with the whole idea of it. All right, so I'm just kind of creating these waves. Yeah. What I plan on doing is I plan on creating a coral reef, okay? So I have these rocks that I will base things on. But I want to do this really quite a significant slathering of color first. Okay, now I don't want things... I find that what I'm probably doing is I think I'm leaving things too light, all right? The darkest thing should probably be like this. I mean, the lightest thing should probably be like this light, but we're kind of establishing that those light beams there. And I want there to be somewhat of an absence of light as well, okay? So really taking it into an otherworldly type of thing. All right, so that being said, so I'm going to stamp those images second, like afterwards, okay? So I'm going to be stamping them kind of wet into wet, because this will be really coated with, surface area of ink by then. I'm using a lot of this now, too. I mean, we have a lot of surface area here. And these are hybrid inks, if I didn't mention. I'll put it in the annotations. And this is a full page matte cardstock. I'm hesitant to even call it cardstock, though, because this is glossy cardstock on this side. It's coated, and then it has a gloss coating on it. This side is just completely uncoated. So I guess it is technically cardstock, but I'm not really working on a cardstock surface, okay? It's just because it's not coated at all. Alright, so it's, I don't know, it's, in my descriptions I tend to be saying just matte paper, okay? I mean, it's thicker than, most just, like, papers, it's not going to be like a copy paper or something like that thin, but it doesn't have a lot of mass to it. I mean, coating to it, surface coating. All right, so I'm generally trying to keep these going in at least one direction. It's kind of fanning out slightly, kind of like crepuscular rays would, all right? And let's go in here slightly. This is really kind of... If I think about it too much, it starts to get to me a little bit, because it is like, I feel like I'm taking this and rubbing it like on a chalkboard, like a dry piece of paper towel and rubbing it on a chalkboard. That's kind of the sensation here. I don't really like that too much. I mean, it's not bad, but it feels kind of, I don't know, there's this tactile quality to it that I'm not really a big fan of. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to really build up my colors on here. And when I build my colors, it takes on a different kind of feel, tactile feel, like it's starting to kind of really build up here. You can see kind of the textures of the paper here, but where I've really built up that ink, okay? See, it really goes on real smooth after that, okay? Ooh, I need to be real careful. This one's really spreading out really far, because it's not absorbing into the paper or going into the grooves as fast as that first color did. See, that first color kind of sealed things in already. So now, look at this. I can just kind of go like that, and it fills up that whole space. Okay. it starts to feel more like, I always say this, but some people might be checking out a video for the first time or seeing one of these hybrid ones, but what it feels like to me when you start to build up these inks is it has the feeling of kind of like a oil pastels that have been laid down. You know, it just kind of, it wipes on very nicely. Okay. See that kind of slathering right there? It's almost too much. I didn't want it to be that type of hard line right here. But with these inks, I can always go back in with a lighter one and go right back over the top of that. So that's what's nice about these inks. It's just, as far as my use goes, it's really good for me because I haven't used these a lot. So I find them very, very forgiving. You know, there's second chances. In other words, I can go back to a lighter color and apply it right over dark one. It doesn't get completely light, but you can lighten it up somewhat. And then you can go over it with like white too. Okay. All right, so getting that atmosphere there. So let's do this right here. Before I go to a darker blue, let me just switch up and just switch into a new piece of this paper towel here. The paper towel works, you know, pretty good. Fine for me. I haven't been saying these colors here. This one's a bright sky. That last one was deep space blue. Kind of making my way. And hybrid inks, for those that don't know too, they are a combination of pigment inks and dye-based inks, okay? Somewhere in between the two of them. Right now, I'm just kind of going back into this darker tone, blue, adding those streaks on here, like so. It might start picking up some of the darker one too, so you know, you might be mixing. See, that's a little bit lighter there. You might be mixing some of the two colors, like physically mixing. When it comes to dye-based inks, it's like you're just kind of laying inks over the top of one another. But with this one, like I said, it's almost like you're applying pastels or something like that over the top of something, so it is physically mixing with the colors underneath quite often. So you're getting these kind of different combinations of colors with whatever colors you happen to be using. Alright, so that is that. I'm not an expert on any of it. I'm just kind of, I don't know, I'm developing my own technique, which could be an existing technique. I don't know. I haven't watched people use these before, but I don't know. This seems to be kind of a way that seems to be working for me so far. But I learned something with every one of these scenes that I do with hybrid inks. I'm not talking about this brand either. I'm talking about just in general, because I've never even used them before until relatively recently. But just having so much fun with them. They kind of lend themselves, I find, to larger format pieces too. I like this kind of free-form type of ink application that we can do with them, and how I can layer and layer. It's just a different type of media. A lot of the same aesthetics, though, that I apply in all of my different media apply to this too. So I like to have an oscillation of lights and darks. I enjoy lighting and atmosphere. By the way, if you hear, I don't know if it's picking it up, this video, but if you hear like exuberance going on in the background, apologize for that in terms of a production standard here, but my son, who's not super demonstrative like school and everything like that, when he gets on these video games and online with friends, it's a loud affair. And I do have my doors closed right now. Okay, so filling in, okay. Kind of getting that kind of feeling. I want a kind of murkiness to this too. I don't want it to crisp, I guess. I want things to have that kind of atmosphere of limited visibility in here, okay? All right, so those were 3 different tones of blue, values of blue, I guess. A couple were, fairly similar, but this is going on with black now, okay? I used to love going to the beach, and I grew up going to tide pools and exploring that, going surf fishing, which is not going on a surfboard, it's just going to the beach. And we would dig sand crabs. I think they're called sand dabs or something like that. We call them sand crabs. We would fish with those, and we would catch these barred perch all the time. And later on, my dad discovered abalone hunting, so he would go abalone hunting. Back in those days, you used to be able to get your limit all the time, which was 4, and they had to be over a certain size. And then we discovered clamming at this one beach. A lot of tide pools, so we'd go out on... My dad would have a tide book back then. We'd always go out on a negative, or a minus tide. And go clamming and whatnot. I was really more into kind of just the exploration, though, of the tide pools. I loved going around and looking at sea anemones and looking in kind of crevasses for, the creatures that were kind of stuck in the tide pools when the tide went out. I'd feed a lot of sea anemones. We'd, crack off a mussel. We never ate mussels. We weren't into that. Probably could have, though. We weren't into those, though. I'd always crack up a mussel and put it in like an open anemone. Watch that anemone kind of close up on it. Alright, so we have those crepuscular rays coming down, if that's what they're called underwater. I would imagine it is. Okay, so now, this is the part that I never really like right in here. All that texture like that. It just looks so grainy, so that's where I come into it with white. Okay, so I'll just go with this one right here. Now, all of these Moonlight Duo pads come with their dedicated white pigment ink counterpart. Okay, I'm just going to be using it kind of for the pigment ink, though. But the idea is that you can ink up a stamp in the hybrid color, and then get a little of that highlighting or something with the white, and then you go in and you stamp those out, and it gives you a multi-value impression with both hybrid and white. Okay. That being said, what I can do is I can mix these two too. Okay, I can go for just some of that white, and I can start applying it on there, or I can mix it with a little bit of blue, like that, to get some sort of version of it, okay? I don't really need to do that in this type of technique that I'm doing right here, because just the fact that I'm just wiping it in there, it picks up that color anyway, okay? But you could do that, though. I mean, this isn't the only way. This is kind of a real specific way that I'm using these inks right here. I don't know if anyone uses these inks like this, but you know, in scenic stamping, I love this different look here. Now this is where I really love how this kind of comes together. See that white, how it looks down in that darkness, and it also starts filling in all those kind of that grainy paper area. See that right there? See how smooth that is? Isn't that kind of cool how this material, this medium, you know, you can influence layers that you've already laid down. And again, it's like pastels or something like that. Or liquid oil pastels. I don't know. But it has this kind of this creamy kind of finish to it. Now see, watch this. So I can come in here and look at that white right in the black. I mean that, and it's kind of fun. I don't know if I might be removing some of that black too, because I don't know if I'm revealing the blue underneath it or if I'm just kind of streaking over it. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening, but I like it. Okay. Kind of fun. I don't know. It's new to me. So if I get really quiet, whenever I get really quiet in videos, it's typically when I just don't know what something's going to look like, with each kind of stroke or swipe. So I'm just kind of watching it kind of happen. And I just have to kind of focus in on it slightly. Okay, coming back with the black. See, it's kind of this oscillation. Or back and forth, maybe not oscillation, but it's kind of a back and forth. You kind of add one thing, go back, add the opposite maybe, and then go back. So it's different for me. I mean, in dye-based inks, I often go back and I'll add something else, but not to this extent where it's that influential, because dye-based inks stain. These ones are on the surface, so you can kind of manipulate things for a longer period of time. I don't know if it's indefinite or what, but quite a bit. Okay, so that's supposed to represent light coming into the area. Okay, so that's not too bad in terms of the length of time. And this is a full-size piece of paper, and that's a ton of media on there. So what is that? That's 24 minutes on this video. So I don't think too bad, you know, in terms of time expenditure. Um, all right, now this is where things. All right, I'm going to use Brookside Boulders down here, okay? I could use just the Boulders with Lichen if that's all I had, but since I have this one, I'm going to use this as well, just for slightly more variation, okay? And this will provide my foundation for my 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 reef, or I guess it's coral reef, okay? I'm using the black hybrid ink to do this. I don't think that a dye-based ink will stamp over the top of this. This is just too wet. It'd be like, I don't know, stamping dye-based ink into, like I said, you know, I keep going back to that. I tend to, the thing that comes to mind is something like oil pastels. Okay, let's go vertical. I was going to do this kind of more horizontal type of thing, but I think I'm going vertical with this foundation here, bottom terrain layer. Okay, I think it's kind of conducive to it. I think it'll give us a little bit more scale, and since I am working 8.5 by 11 here, I think it'll build up nicely. Okay, I never know how these things are going to stamp out. They usually stamp out better than I think they are. But because it's kind of matte paper and the page is just so coated with ink, I'm never quite sure how long to keep that impression down like that, okay? So you see that? It didn't print out there real well, but it printed out good enough. It's because the surface layer is not even, okay? It's a little bit varied just because some inks are real thick in some areas. Okay, now do you see how this Boulders with Lichen kind of merges with this stamp really well? Okay, see that? I'll show you right here on the thing. See how this can blend in top and bottom, left and right, okay? So if you're new to kind of scenic stamping or Stampscapes, I spend a lot of time in what I call the transitions. You want things to be as graceful as possible in terms of the merging of designs, and that's where I put a ton of work into my designs. I want things to blend in really well with each other and harmonize, so that when you put one stamp next to the other one, it's a seamless type of experience, you might say. Okay, let's see. Let's go here. Okay, now every time I use this, I'll re-ink it, okay? So I can get a good crisp impression. But if I wanted another one of these ledges to look like it's farther off in the distance, I might go for the second impression of it. I might stamp it off once, okay? See how that builds up like that? There's no kind of seam in between. There's not kind of a clear indication of where one impression ends and the other one begins. And you can just keep repeating your designs as much as you want. So I try to create a dominant, solid imagery if used individually, but when used repeatedly, I want it general enough to where it just looks like another continuation of the existing form that we already stamped out, okay? So in other words, there's no too distinct of a landmark on the design where you can't use it repeatedly like this. like that. Seems like this nice shelf, and see this area right in here. What I'll do is I'll just kind of off-center this a little bit. I'll come in now, maybe down here. So fill that up like that. Those beams are looking really fun on there, aren't they? Once you get the imagery laid down. No, okay, now I don't know. Maybe we could have stamped this out first and then put the rays on there, but I just have a feeling that those doing all that type of streaking like that could have smeared this imagery right here, especially if stamped in the hybrids. Maybe if we stamped this imagery in dye-based inks, it would be kind of set, and then we can put those tones over the top of it. Maybe, I don't know. It might work, I'm not sure. I haven't been using these long enough to really test out a lot of different concepts, usage concepts. Just kind of filling in a couple little spots there. But there you have it, Brookside Boulders, and the Boulders with Lichen. Okay, used together. Hopefully that looks like just one continuing band of rocks. You know, hopefully it doesn't look too much. I mean, definitely we could say, okay, there's where that one ends and the other one begins. But you know, to those that don't know, you don't want them to think that. Okay, you just want them to say, oh, you know, where'd you get that stamp? You know, they think it's one stamp or something like that. Okay, let's see. This is the smaller version of it right here. I think I'm going to stamp that in a lighter color, okay? Actually, I'm going to stamp this one. I'm going to stamp the larger one in this color of blue. It's the darkest blue that I used when toning. Hopefully, if doing it in this color right here, it will look farther away, okay? We'll see. I mean, I could, you know, stamp this off too and get a kind of a better indication of what it'll look like, but I'm just going to go for it, okay? I'm going to wipe off some of this to... I'm going to soften some of my transitions a little bit, okay? So it's going from a little bit more distinct up here and a little bit less down here, okay? And it's because I'm going to be stamping it here. If I wipe off this bottom, it'll be a little bit, there'll be more of a contrast between this impression right here and the next one, okay? So hopefully this looks like it's a little bit farther off, you know, a little bit more distant. You know, in water, it's, you know, they always talk in terms of visibility. It's, you know, there's 50 feet visibility, 20 feet visibility, you know, 5 or whatever. So you're talking about, you know, just how far you can see, you know, relative clearly out into the distance. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think that looks farther away, right? Let's do that again, I think. This is taking me back to my diving class. I even loved, I took diving as a PE class in college, which is maybe a bad idea because it costs so much to rent all the equipment, you know, for a poor college student. But I was so broke. But I loved even just training for our dives. We used to have to do a lot of laps in the pool, which was this, you know, Olympic-sized pool. So it was like 15 feet deep because we were swimming in the high dive area, you know, those platform diving areas. But you swim in the pool and you get to wear all your, not your tanks or anything like that, but your wetsuit and your fins. So Oh my gosh, you can swim so fast in those fins, the super long diving fins, and the pools are long enough where you can really get some momentum going. It was so much fun. And then I took the class. It was kind of a night course, or it started off in the day, but by the end of the class, it was often after dark. So, you're swimming in a pool that's, lit like this. So I loved, you have your mask on, so I loved seeing the different light reflections and things like that in the pool. All right, so there's 2 layers. Doesn't that look kind of I don't know, like the ocean? I don't know. All right, let me do something here too. Let me just fool around with this. Let me see if I can get another one back here. This is going for a second impression off that one right there, just to see if this is a little bit lighter. And I think it does. It looks a little bit lighter in the background, so it's got dark, a lightest right there. Okay? So it gives us a little bit more of a three-dimensional type of, I don't know, maybe a deep space essence, okay, featuring value to represent depth. And, as you get farther back in there, of course, it's you lose the visibility. All right, I don't think I need this one. I could have used it, but all right, now let's see. Let's start to go for some different types of plants. I'm not sure if I want to do some of this in green. Tempted. This is like some sea kelp here. I think I could get some color in this, but I'm not sure. But I'll do it in that kind of that hybrid way. I'll try to go for some multiple tones on this type of thing. Okay. But I'm doing that quiet thing. I'm trying to compose here. There's just absolutely no way I could have known what this would possibly look like at this point in time. So, I'm talking about from my experience, which is very little with these inks. Okay, so here's my idea. I think I'm going to go over something like this green here. And we'll try to have this represent some sea kelp. I'm not sure what colors to do on this one, though, or how to do it. I'm thinking about green. Okay, let's just go with this green. It's kind of it's like an olive green. Okay. All right. It's called Space Moss. Okay. I really love that color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce some of this black onto it, though, too. Okay. Multi-toned impression, multi-value impression. I'm just tapping onto it with this black. It's a touch strange. Okay, now I'm going to put this white into play here, okay, on some of these. You see that right there? So I'm going for that type of, I don't know what that's going to stamp out like. Let me see if I can kind of manipulate some of these. Okay, how's that look? I mean, it looks kind of cool on the stamp. So there's black, green, and white on some of those tips. Okay. All right, so let's just say I'm going to have this coming out from behind these close rocks right here. Okay, the boulders, the reef, or whatever. So I'm going to do this right here. This may or may not work. I have no idea. Like with all things, I certainly hope it works. But if it doesn't, we'll just adjust. You know, I can always stamp these dark, you know, with no problem. So, but hopefully I can get some color into this. And I think it looks pretty good. See that? Look how it looks in context, okay? All right. I was just trying to remember the process there. Okay, we went green, black, then white, right? Green. Now, I expect this to come out a little different because I'm applying this green right over the top of the, you know, my previous inking, which might be a little bit different. Okay, so green. Some black. If I went black then green before, I don't know. Maybe this will work this way. I just don't remember. Okay. All right. And then, you'll see how that really pollutes that ink right there. I'll show you how to just wipe that off. Or did I show you before in this video? I'm getting lost in the creative process. I don't remember what I did, you know, a couple minutes ago. Kind of in the moment. That's the excuse I'll use. I really have a bad memory. Okay, so how's that look? See this right here? You can see what it kind of might, you know, stamp out as. Okay. I always want the stamps to look really graceful. So, you know, if a stamp can work as something underwater, or represent something underwater, that's about as kind of graceful and flowing of an object as possible. You know, you want things to look like it's in motion. I want my objects to look like they're in motion, even on land or something like that. I want a tree to have a natural gesture to it, a branch, even a dead branch. In the designs, I always want them to have a natural gesture to them so that they have a certain poetry to them and things don't look kind of static, okay? And so this green is, that green is looking darn nice. I think it looks pretty good on there. And that's green stamped over like black and blue. I think that's what it will continue to look like. I don't know for sure. But one of the kind of nice things about the hybrid inks from everything that I've seen up to this point is that they dry pretty close to what they look like when they're wet. With dye-based inks, sometimes they dry completely different depending on your the configuration of the brands that you're using. But I mean, we just spray them and we're fine. But sometimes it's kind of hard to tell, just how far to take something, ink-wise, value-wise, saturation-wise, and so forth, until you allow it to dry. Then sometimes I have to go back into it and kind of retouch something, or fine-tune it, maybe, rather. Okay, now I'm just doing this one straight black, because I wanted to create a little bit of depth within that space. So see that black one right there, in addition to that green? Alright, I'm loving this so far. The tests are kind of coming out, pretty much as I hoped they would. Okay, green is showing up on top of dark. The mixtures of the different tones on the stamp itself are pretty much stamping out as it appears it could. And again, that's where these Moonlight Duos come into play. That's their concept, is to be able to mix it like that and to stamp it out, and for that variation to show, and it's showing in there, like in that little white up there and the green and whatever within there. Alright, so there's some kelp kind of flowing down here. I think I might need another one up top here, just to kind of keep things balanced out a little bit from top to bottom. I'll clean this pad off shortly. Okay, here's some more green. There was a lot of black on this. I didn't even bother cleaning it off because, it's going to be some kind of combination. Okay. Hit this one with a little bit of black. I don't know if I need to hit this one with black. It looks kind of black on there. Okay. I think I'll just leave this one as that. I don't think I'll use any white on this impression right here, but maybe I'll come from above like this. Just to kind of create some continuity, If I just have that kelp down here, up here, it seems like it needs something to relate to up there. Okay, something like that. Alright, let's see what we can do about some other textures in here. Okay, so let's see if this cleans up like we had hoped. Okay, now in their video, the company that makes those pads, they just cleaned it up like so. It doesn't completely clean up, okay, or unpollute, okay, but you just kind of wipe it off like this. And they do have re-inkers for that white pigment, so it's not really a big deal. You just apply, pigment on there, the re-inker back on there. No, well, that's not bad, is it? I mean, that wasn't going black into white, so that's like the highest contrast possible that you can possibly pollute another white pad with, and there you go. So anyways, pretty good concept, from them. I'm not affiliated with any, I'm affiliated with Stampscapes, but no other media that I use am I affiliated with the products. So I use what I use because I like it, okay? And I'll never show anything that I'm not, that I don't believe in. I might try something, and I don't know if it'll work or not. Okay, here's some more kelp for this. Or, I don't know, this is called the Twisting Leaves. And why don't we do this one in those lighter tones again, like we did before, okay? So, I don't know, I could do it in green, but the more distant something is underwater, you kind of lose the color. So I'm just going to do this in blue, I think. Okay? just to create some sense of depth within the piece. Maybe I'll wipe some of this off too, so it's kind of this oscillation of form, you know, kind of crisp and diffused. Okay, just go like that. It's almost too diffused. I can barely see it. It looks okay though. Barely visible though, huh? Put right back in here. Maybe I'll try to put it in a lighter area. Okay, go something like that. And that might be too light. I could go darker if I want to. But let's just leave it at that for right now. Okay, we have these little kind of like spiny coral types of things. Let's see which ones I want to use. Maybe the smaller one right here. It's kind of like a sea fan or something. Now I'm tossing around the idea of using some other colors in here, but I don't know if I want to. I'm talking about like a slight tinge of red or something. It could be interesting. Or brown. Let me see if I have something like that. Here's a brown. I don't think I should just use only that, though. I think it would look kind of weird within that context of this color scheme. Let's see. Seeing if I have a smaller block. I'll just use this one. Okay. I don't know if I want to go with that brown. That green is looking pretty cool in there. Let me do this right here. Let me go to this green. That moss one, space moss. And let me go to this one right here. Well, let's go even lighter. Let's go to this one right here. Galactic green. Okay. Put some of that on it, and I'll put a little bit of white on that. Okay, alright, this is what we have here. It's not as apparent because it's not a big, thick leaf like that other one, but let's see what we can come up with this. Okay, let me do this too. Okay, I'm going to stamp this on this black area. So I'm going to put the base of this as black, where it kind of comes from, so it won't just be like a completely different color. Hopefully it'll transition from black up into these colors so it's not in focus. See there, it's kind of black down here and kind of transitions up. I don't know if I've left enough of the green, but we'll see how this goes. Okay, so yeah, it's a little bit too light right there. It looks pretty cool there though, doesn't it? Actually, I do like that. Let's do this again right here. lightest one, kind of a darker one down below. I think I might leave white out of it this time. Okay. I'm trying to hit that bottom portion with the black. Okay, let's try this. That area there is really damp still. And I'll hit it right down here first. Maybe I'll go up here. Oh, that's exactly what I wanted right there. Look at that. Look how that transitions right there up into that green. Can you see that? But look how it looks in context, though. Let me see a little bit closer so you can see. Right? That being said, okay, let's go for this spiny branch. Large. This one's called Spiny Branch, I think. Okay, let's go. We need a bigger block for that. All right, pretty big. Oh, why not? I'll just put on some green. I don't know if I'll have any of this green showing because this is a dark area down here, so I don't know if it'll show up at all. But I'll just ink it up with this seamless. I got that ink into there. I'm inking up. Huh. Remarkable. I don't know. I'm just kind of surprised how that kind of cleans up. You know, whenever I do it. I guess when it starts drying off a little bit more, it's not going to clean up as easy, but I'll have to get a re-inker for that sometime. Okay, so just getting a little of this black on here, or a lot of this black. Okay. And I'm going to put this larger one maybe out here in the foreground somewhere. I don't know if it'll show up because there's so much of this dark Boulders Lichen over here showing. So this is going dark texture over dark already. But hopefully some of it will show. Okay, actually there's more green down there than I thought. There it is right there. It's not real apparent because it's in darkness. And it creates a little bit of a kind of a feeling of depth in there. Okay, after I look at it, I want to go with a darker impression too. Right over the top of it, or to the side. Okay. So we'll just go straight black. Go down here. I think I'll go up here with it. Okay. There's a couple of them down here. how about that image right there is starting to dry off a little bit. I can't see it too much. Let's go with the black one right next to it. A reiteration of form. Let's just do it in straight black. Okay. There it is right there. So we're kind of benefiting from, remember how we wiped off the bottom of the Boulders Lichen before we gave it the impression? So where it lightens up down here, when I create something below it, it shows up better because, you know, it's just a lighter version of it. Okay, so like, there's the boulder. So if I wanted to put something here, we could see it better than if this was that dark down here. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's play around with things. Just kind of in coral reefs and things. There's just so many different. You know, it's just a gigantic community of different types of forms. Now this could really look like a piece of fan coral right here, potentially. This is the winter brush. Debating on whether or not I want to put a little bit of color into this one. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. And I'll put that dark base to it. I put 2 tones of green in it. I think this area right here is light enough where it might read fairly well in terms of the different value transitions, even to the lightest of green. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. Looks pretty decent right there. All right, let's do something here too. Let's go back to the twisting leaves small. I just want to create a little contrast in here. I'm wiping off the little stem part. I'm not quite sure where I want to put that, but I'm going to put this one right in here. Okay, just something like that. Okay, so we have quite a little forest here, huh? All right, so yeah, I don't think I'll put that in there. Here's my bare branch. I think that's it with that. Let's think about some fine tuning now, okay? What I'm going to try to do here, I don't think a lot needs to be done in a lot of this, but what I want to do is I want to create a little bit more contrast in certain areas. want to make some of my forms look slightly more dimensional. Meaning, what I'll do is I'll just increase some of the shadows here and there. Okay, so I'm just going to go in with black. Okay, and certain areas I'll just kind of start toning some areas in slightly more. Okay. See, down here it's getting a little bit busy, so what I like to do is I like to just decrease some of the contrast with some of those types of leaves and foliage, okay? Seaweed, kelp, and whatever. And I'll just decrease this contrast between the area where it gets a little bit busy and those objects, so it just looks a little bit more mellow. Okay, some of these Brookside boulders, I'll make them a little bit more rounded and by placing some tone at the base of the rocks. Okay. All right. I think we're done with the fine tuning of form. Now, let's take a look at some fish. I don't have too many fish swimming underwater. Most of my scenes are done where the objects, are out of the water, but I do have this little salmon guy, and I think I want to use him in here. And I think I want to do it in different tones. Okay, now I plan on bringing in some additional light beams into this and making it look really dimensional, but I think I need to stamp these fish first. Okay, so I don't want too many of them or anything like that, but let's see what we can do. Let me see. Fish are light on the bottom and darker on top, okay? So when you're looking down, they're kind of camouflaged, and other fish looking from above, looking up into the light, they're going to be lighter on the bottom. So I'll see if I could do that, and we'll utilize our, our Moonlight Duo. Moonlight Duo abilities here. So what I've done is I put a little bit of color, that white, can you see that on the bottom of the fish? So I've colored it in with all that blue, and I put a little of that white pigment ink at the bottom of the fish. Let me see, which way should I do it? Should I just, you can have them go vertical, you can have them do anything. Maybe I'll have them kind of going up like this. Okay, you can barely see it. Okay. And I am stamping it in a color that's, very similar to the color underneath, where I have it white, barely shows up. But, I mean, that's fine. Put a little school of them right there. Let me just go in straight with white. Okay. Maybe that'd be too much white. Let's go like that. All right. A little grouping of 5, a little school of fish like that. How's that look? Okay. All right. We've totally polluted our blue. I don't even know if I need to wipe this off. I guess it's a good habit to kind of wipe it off after usage so that that hybrid ink doesn't kind of, I don't know if it'll blend together with that ink even more if it's allowed to sit, or get set up in there. I don't know. Okay, so I want to fine-tune a little bit with a little bit more of these light beams in here. These rays to make them look a little bit more dimensional. They look like, they look pretty dimensional already, but let's do that a little bit more. I need to go get a fresh cotton ball. I'm all out of cotton balls here. Okay, the magic cotton balls. Okay, here. I don't think I need to do this, but I think it'll add more dimension if I add in, some additional kind of light beams coming down. I think it'll give it a little bit more dimension and depth. I don't want to go too much with it. I don't want to go crazy, but let's just see what it looks like, okay? And besides, this is so much fun to do. I have a couple of these other pieces of scratch paper that I've already used. Okay. Well, we'll have these light beams kind of taper off too. So I normally have a vanishing point, but I feel like these rays are pretty decently positioned right now. Well, I don't need to. I don't need to have a vanishing point. I can just kind of go along with the direction that I've kind of already established here. But let's see. I do want to be reasonably careful, though. Okay. Okay, so we can see it. I don't even know if I picked up any of that. Okay. I think this is an acrylic cotton ball. It's not real cotton. It's not working as good. Let me go to my Hero Arts pigment ink pad. It's just juicier than the one that I was just using. Okay, let me see if I can pick up more ink on this, okay? Okay, yeah, that works, I think. I might need to go with a longer beam. A piece of scratch paper here, copy paper. Okay, see that kind of beam kind of reaching down? I don't know if it's very apparent there. It's like that, coming down like that. Huh. I need a longer piece. I guess it makes sense. I'm working on a really large, 8.5 by 11 here. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I'm kind of just lightly dabbing this down here where I want it to taper. I don't want it strength of the beam to be as strong down here, okay? See, it kind of tapers off a little bit like that. Okay, I'm going to switch cotton balls too. These are acrylic, and they're not giving me the soft kind of consistency that I want. So, lesson learned here. Okay, I have cotton here for an actual cotton ball. I'll try the acrylic for other things at a later date, but I guess it makes sense though that from a textural standpoint and from a absorption standpoint, the acrylic's just not going to absorb like cotton. You know, cotton is something that wicks kind of moisture, you know, and so it's going to be somewhat resistant to it, whereas the cotton absorbs. So I don't know. It's just kind of giving me a texture that I wasn't really happy with here. Okay. So let me get a little bit more of this beam that I was working on right here. Okay, now what I like to do is I kind of like to smash this down a little bit. And let's see, yeah, it's so much softer of a texture. True cotton, okay. Alright. That is that. Right. Like I said, I won't go crazy with this, but I do want some added dimension here, so. So I have to look at it right side up because I'm not sure where I want it to go sometimes. Okay, so let's go this way. Okay, a little bit more right over here, kind of where the light is emanating from, and kind of taper down this way. The feeling is, it's kind of strange tapping it into this because I guess it does say that those hybrid inks do say that they're waterproof, did it say? Water resistant? So this is a water-based media. So I feel like it's not going on there real fast, which might be a good thing because it kind of gives me time to work it with how much ink I want to put down there. But see that right there? Isn't that fun? Okay. Now, beams don't always have to go all the way across and in front of things. Things could be going, kind of landing out in the distance. Okay, so let's vary some of this. Let's have some beams kind of going this way maybe, and we'll have it kind of ending a little bit farther back in the distance. Okay, maybe I'll make it a weaker beam. Okay, so I'll just kind of go like this. Maybe I'll make one pass or so. Maybe two passes. Yeah, I mean, it's really very faint. Okay, so I went from there to there with that one. It's kind of right there. I lost it. It's right there. I do seem to want something coming right down here, though, don't I? Boy, that is a really long beam. I might have to do this. I might have to use my 11x17 blotter paper. All right, let's go with something like that. those twisting leaves. I think I like these twisting leaves underwater even more than kind of terrestrial. One of the things about these beams too, sometimes what you do is you don't make it a solid thing. You have it a little bit lighter, darker, lighter, darker. So you go a little bit thicker, thin, thick, thin, okay? Because that light would be kind of bending, depending on the waves and whatever, changing that light, like that. See, there's that. Kind of starts off a little bit stronger, and then it goes a lot dark. I can't see it at all down here because I need to extend that beam from here to here. So, kind of just like taking a ruler and just kind of, just extend it down farther like that. So, put a little bit like that, and full beam, partial, just kind of vary it just a touch. Okay, so like that. See where it's like kind of strong, weak, like that. That's the way it looks from a distance. I think I can do that. I think I can vary this beam a little bit more too. That looks really good. I was a little bit too conservative here. With my oscillation of beam strength on this one. I need to get a little bit more. I need to free up my beam approach. Okay, so get a little bit stronger in some areas, here and there. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I think it's going to look weird if I kind of vary things too much. But I don't know, with these things, I don't know, it seems like I don't know, no matter how you do it, it looks pretty good, and it just seems to be able to take whatever you want to throw at it. Okay, so see that kind of flash right down there? See how it kind of oscillates like that? It looks really good like that. I think in here. Putting some over the tops of some of those fish. A couple of them. Okay. Go like that. We'll just end it right there. A little bit of variation. And I'm kind of tossing around the idea of coming down in here. All right, let's just do it. I was thinking maybe it's too dark and would be too much right in here. But this area down here, it's, in terms of visual interest, it's not quite doing it for me. Might want a little bit of variation in here. Okay, so I can just kind of go like that, and some ink. Some blank area, kind of going along with the path of the beam. I'll check it. Okay, so there's that one right there. I don't know, I think it added to it a little bit. And let's go with a thin. Let's go with one more thin. That one's pretty thin right there. Let's go with a real thin one. All the beams are kind of the same width. They're not, I mean, there's a little bit of variation, but I want a little bit more. Let's go with a real thin beam right here. Just for some variation. You need kind of a size variation once in a while. Just so it doesn't look so... just with all things, you know, that's why I make things in two different sizes too. So I might want kind of the repetition of form for visual continuity, but you don't want it so repetitive, so that's why I have it in two different sizes a lot of times. So you can have near and far, or just large and small. Okay, see that right there? We kind of broke up that little line like that. All right, so that is that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a lot more light right up in here, kind of the emanation, where it's emanating from. All right. It kind of stands to reason that it would be a little bit lighter, kind of where the light is coming from, right? Kind of doing this kind of softens up some of the beams, you know, from that hard vertical or hard straight angle they create. Okay, something like that, and kind of add some of this down, you know, here and there. It'll soften up some of the forms and the distance. Okay, I might be taking this too far. I'll just kind of go in and redefine some of those beams in there a little bit more. Okay, so let's go with this again. Let me get some of these beams a little bit more defined if I fogged it over too much. Okay. Okay, that one is, this beam right here is really prominent, so let's have that one defined, at least in a couple areas, a little bit more. I think down here too. creating a little sub. Oops, I didn't get the angle right on that one. Let me go again here. Yeah, not great. Let me just kind of merge it in a little bit. What you do is, if you don't like something, you just kind of decrease the contrast between it and background a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at this. See that kelp right there? Let's have that capturing, reflecting a little bit of light off of it, like that. Put some of this white pigment ink over the top, like so. See, it kind of incorporates it in with the piece a little bit more, like that. Where it's a little bit lighter. Man, yeah. Pretty crazy piece. I really enjoyed, or am enjoying this process with this one. I want to do some different things with it still. I want to use some, definitely the white paint pen, the Miaosun white paint pen. To pick up some highlights here, we have this white streaming light coming into the scene. Okay, I'm going to use this too because when I put my hand down it, I won't be picking up all that. Look at my fingers. Looks like I've been stamping here or something. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we can do with this Miaosun white acrylic paint pen. Okay. The light is coming from above, so what I'll do is I'll just add a few little kind of glistening little highlights on some of these objects and rock surfaces here, where they're kind of capturing some of that light. Maybe it can, some of these highlights can kind of follow the beam. Here, let me try to get in here a little bit more. This is such a large scene, I really had to raise my tripod up here. See this little highlights on the that kelp there. See these rocks down here, kind of within the beam. Maybe there could be a little bit of illumination, like that. We have this really strong beam over here. I can put a little bit on this kelp, like that. Rocks or everything kind of in its pathway. I mean, this beam could be, way in front of it, but I don't know. It seems to make sense, from a visual standpoint. I think it looks okay. And plus it gives us a little bit of an extra excuse to add a little bit more contrast and texture into the scene by adding these types of little effects. This beam right here, you could be illuminating that kelp. Okay. Alright, let's take a look here. See those little details like that? Look at that light. See that little highlight on the tops of those leaves? Like that. these fish right here. You can put a little highlight on, some of those. Those fish are very reflective. Something like that. So what they look like up close. I mean, when someone's viewing this from arm's distance, you might not be able to see something like that. But, when you look at it like this, I think it makes kind of a nice subtle detail. All right, so we have like very specifics there in terms of lighting, okay? So let's up like this. And let's do the final touches on here. Unless, let's see. Let me get something right here. I think I want this beam. This beam right here is, I really like this beam, this light beam. Let's add a little bit more down here. Extend it a touch. Okay. Something like that. You never would have known those stamps weren't underwater stamps, I think, right? So you can just do that, you guys are all stampers and creative individuals. It's always talk about kind of looking at the designs and seeing different possibilities with them, how you use them, what parts of them do you use, kind of a dissection of them and just using partials. We have that Stampscapes U video on using partials. Okay. All right, so we have our Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Wow, I'm getting down to a half bottle here. After years and years and years of using it. I think I'm using it quite a bit lately, though. But I barely use, any with each application, so it really goes a long ways. And I don't plan on using a ton of it here, but I think this will look kind of cool in this scene, just from a textural standpoint. Oh, let me see, where's my toothbrush? I need my toothbrush, I need my applicator tool for this. Okay, I have my trusty, in this case, bubble applicator, underwater bubble applicator. It's just a toothbrush that I'll splatter paint my scene with. Okay, I don't want to have too much on there. I don't want to get these big blobs of paint. Okay, so kind of get it the right consistency. You want it like syrup or something like that. Kind of flowing, not too thick, not too thin. Okay. And, all right, let me see if I can... let's see, I'm not sure where I want this, actually. I kind of want it overall. I'll put some in this waterway down here. Maybe I'll put it in a couple different areas. Maybe I'll put it down here, though, first, okay? So, let's see here. I mean, it just kind of reads as texture. Like it's like an aquarium, with a little thing, or maybe the crashing waves. I mean, you probably wouldn't have churning waves, and oxygen down at that depth, but I just like it as a textural standpoint. Things don't always have to make, logical sense. You can add it for just sheer visual, purposes. You see that right there? from a textural standpoint, it's not too big of a statement. You know, it's more of a kind of a detail thing. See those little dots right in there? See how kind of nice? I think they go really nicely with that, you know, with the light, with those beams, though. See that? Really splattered quite a lot around those fish. It's a really fine mist. You see that up there? I can't even see anything that's going on there if it is. It's like white on very light, so it's not very apparent. Okay. Okay, kind of adding quite a bit up here, but I think that looks really good. I think that's, just without it, I think it's fine, but you add that in there and it's just that extra little touch. It's something very crisp and light from a textural standpoint. Kind of add a little bit down here, where it's kind of just blank down here, but you add those little dots down there, like that. It kind of adds a little bit of visual interest to that area. All right, I think that's enough. I don't want to go everywhere. I still want it varied. I don't want just like this universal, like just spraying over the top of it. All right, let me take a look here. I think that's it. I don't know. What do you think? I think it looks kind of underwater-ish to me, if that's a word. A lot of fun doing this one. I certainly learned a lot with this one, too. I've learned about imagery as well, you know, just what you can do with it. And also, I kind of played around with that aspect of that, you know, the dual types of impressions using those hybrid inks. So kind of mixing the green, the black, and white all together for these varied impressions down here. I mean, those would look a lot different if I just stamped in one color. So just the very fact that they're kind of moving a little bit, you know, in terms of the colors. Same with these things right here. It's green and then the black down below. I think that looks a little bit more rich and, I don't know, just varied than just doing them in one color. Although I think one color would be okay, but just kind of playing around with that was fun. And I even did that in those fish back there. You can't really tell, but those ones had varied impressions as well. So just a ton learned here from a technique and media standpoint, as well as from the different images. So I didn't use everything. This one would look good too, but as large as this is, I just don't want to overburden it with too many different more forms. So I don't know. I guess from a stamping standpoint, it's not too complex. You know, we have like this Boulders of Lichen here, and then the twisting leaves. We just used, you know, two versions of it. So there's a lot of repetition of form within the piece. So it doesn't get too overly busy looking because, you know, we create a lot of continuity from these two used in conjunction with one another. And then what do we have? We have the fish there. It's a school of fish, but we just use the same fish, okay? And then I used, you know, the small and large version of the spiny branches right here, you know, for our coral, okay? And this is kind of like a little piece of fan coral. So, I mean, that's a really big scene. we didn't have to use every one of those. I could probably, I could have not done the smaller versions and this would have been fine, but just the smaller versions add a little bit of depth to it, to reiterate the depth within the rocky kind of foundation that we established. Let's see. What were some other things learned in here? I don't know. I guess that's it. The streaking of the different forms in here, and then adding the white streaks physically back into it. So the streaks that were established were the negative areas. We just didn't. The streaks were established because we didn't color them all in. We had some darker streaks coming up this way, so the positive streaks were going this way. And then we just layer those and reiterate those, those light beams with some additional ink applied right over the top of it, for some extra depth. So I think that really helped, though, because, like that beam down here and coming down in here, it just added a little bit more variation to those rocky areas. So didn't have to be done. I think it looked okay before it, but I think with it, it's just that little extra special touch. And the same thing with, doing things like this little splatter painting technique, I don't know. I like this area out here. It just, it's just a little bit more interesting, having kind of that textural form in there like that. And of course, those little highlights on our leaves kind of merge in with the scene a little bit more, being that we have that little white dot texture kind of happening throughout the piece and not just on the reflected light types of areas like on these kelp branches and whatnot. So, okay, so anyways, hope you enjoyed the scene as much as I enjoyed doing it. Thanks as always for tuning into the channel. If you like this video and like this scene, as always, please hit the like button. It might help get a few more people over to the channel. I don't know how that works, but I know that doesn't hurt. So, thanks as always, and until the next scene.